name's Christy Swimmer McLemore. I'm of the Cherokee Nation tribe in Oklahoma. It was in 1983. It was 5 p.m. in the afternoon, walking to a friend's house to go roller skating on a Friday. A man walked up on the sidewalk and I stopped, told him to go first. And he said, "No, you go first." And I proceeded and he abducted me. At that time I was dragged, beaten, knocked out, and didn't wake up for, I guess, a few days. I was caged in a cage. I was taken to another place away from where I lived. There were other girls that were in cages, and we realized that we were at a man camp deep in the woods, mountains of Montana. And at that time we were heavily drugged. A lot of men in and out. It was pretty horrifying.
I have learned of different stories that just really pushed me to want to take action. This work really has us look at survivors and victims and missing persons as relatives. And so when you learn of really horrible stories, they really stick with you, and that was the case with me. I learned of a story and I just really couldn't shake it, and I thought we needed to do more work here in our area. So I feel like law enforcement gets dismissive of our communities because there's a lot of stigmas. It's so stigmatized that it's the norm from outside looking into our communities. But this crisis points out to the rest of all of the nations, all of this country, that we go missing and face violence at disproportionate rates.
With the drugs and everything, we didn't really know what was happening to us at any time. But it seemed like it was forever and for days and nonstop. Some of the girls, we had a time where we were out in a room all together. There were a couple of us girls and everything, and knowing where I was abducted from, I grew up in the country, so we were very mindset of making things. So we made weapons to get away at times. So what we did was we had a plan, and it took days for this plan to proceed. We got to the point where we made a definite date that we were going to do it and when it was going to happen, at a time where we knew activity was going to be happening where we would all be together. There were, out of 8 of us, there were only 3 of us that got away together, and 2 others were killed. I'm the only one that's surviving today. The other 2 have taken their lives.
Because of history, we have a lack of understanding of how we're in these situations. The infrastructure just isn't there to have the follow through that's needed. And when there's no infrastructure to help people, there's also no infrastructure to hold people accountable for their actions and when they're breaking the law. So you have cases where somebody could come onto tribal lands and literally get away with murder. Because if you can leave and get back to the city you're from, you're pretty much, on the outside looking into Native communities. That historical context needs to be the normal, because colonization isn't our history, it's U.S. history, and it's not talked about on the level it should.
Issues that Native women face and most tribal communities face when it comes to health disparities are pretty high. They can face anything from higher rates of diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, those types of issues that are often exacerbated by their living environment. So different social determinants of health make their livelihoods challenging. And so Native women in particular, when we're looking at reproductive care, adequate health care, sufficient health care, are all issues that are challenging towards Native American women, but also Native American populations as a whole. Now, these challenges are often systematic.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we learned in this experience is you really have to be thoughtful when you're dealing with communities that you're not nascent to. Just really understanding the localization that's needed in order for your brand to really get into the community, to bring about transformative change. And so we've been a lot of learning through Shane and his organization at Partnerships with Native Americans.
So for PWNA, we advocate on multiple different levels, but we also support local initiatives. And so we can partner with MMIW Texas. So we deliver goods and services at multiple different levels, and then just connecting the communities to other access and resources that they may need.
You know, for many years I felt guilty because I did survive. It was hard. It was very hard. You lose your identity. So for all these years, I've kept all my story in, but it took my granddaughter being abducted for me to realize something's got to stop. She was gone for 10 days and we couldn't get the police to do anything. So I reached out to the Native community and Jody answered the call. It took Jody helping me to get legal and to get the police to act. And she was found 10 days later.
That experience with Christy has really shaped how we do our intake and protocols surrounding helping families now. And I had a lot of contacts with media and understanding how city government works and things like that. And so I was able to offer a lot of things from my personal experience, but just spending time with her, I was able to learn about her family and about her. With Christy's story, we learned that she had been abducted.
For so long, I never wanted anyone to know what had happened to me. I never wanted because I had sons afterwards, I never wanted them to think less of me as a woman of what happened to me.
Will this be a way for you to reclaim, remember, let your whole body remember, your heartstrings remember, and sing out for a beautiful change.
You know, raising the awareness, and in some ways you have to put in order what the most important thing is. Getting a person home, that's primary. Getting the person home safely. After that, it becomes this onion that has to be peeled back and different layers of trauma that have to be resolved. And so Techplug has really helped us bring into the fold when we can start talking about not just health, but sexual health and recovery and healing from the trauma that's associated with these types of incidences.
First started off thinking that we could deploy these STI test kits into Native communities. Then we realized, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot of questions and a lot of hesitancy around like what's happening with the data. It's like, okay, there's not a lot of comfort around that. So we was like, okay, let's take a step back. Can we develop a marketing campaign to help individuals within the community understand who we are and what we're doing, and that we're really passionate about their community, but also passionate about getting them the resources that they need in a way that is not coming off like you're trying to take advantage of the community, but you're really trying to galvanize support and resources to give to the community so they can be empowered to be proactive around their health and their healing.
I mean, we've had a number of different opportunities where we bring people together and you see the healing that takes place.
And I think that opens up, you know, opportunities to start figuring out ways, creative ways to solve some of our biggest challenges that we're facing. One of the things in starting Techplug that I realized, you know, I was thinking the company was really brought about because we want to be that plug between tech and under-resourced and underserved communities. So the work that Partnerships with Native Americans are doing is critically important to understand where they are and the resources that they provide to Native communities. Also, MMIW, the work that Jody Yellowfish is leading, I think is incredibly important to kind of lean into understanding what she's doing.
We offer things like cedar and sage and medicines to pray with, and inviting them to events that we do. And we started these spaces where women just gathered and we talked. Have coffee, have breakfast type foods, and you're gonna sit around a table and we're just gonna kick it and share space together.
We're community-centric organizations. We care about the end user, and that's the people. You can be a Native American woman, you can be a black woman who's 60 years old that's living in the projects, or you could be a white woman living in rural Alabama in a trailer who has to barter services in order to get her maternal care taken care of. That's a similarity across it of all these organizations, people.
It's healing in that you feel connected. And our end goal is that you feel like you have family. Our work is we take on these cases like they're our relatives. And so we put that kind of work and care into the case and afterwards as well. We want you to feel like you have a family to turn to if you ever feel the need to run again.
My family is very important to me, and if I could help them or help any other woman not go through what I've been through, or any family go through what I've been through, to me, that's healing. To me, I've done justice. I've done justice for myself. I've done justice for what happened to me. And even though I never got to meet my predators, I've won. I've won. Because I lived and I survived. And that's the most important thing to me.